Hi, Mashida. Can you see me?
Hi, Dr. Ho. Yes, I can.
Okay, great.
Hello. Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. So, a very good afternoon to everyone who's joining us today, or evening or morning, depending on where you're dialing in. And also a very warm welcome to our first partner workshop this afternoon, developing a micro-credential strategy and action plan for implementation. I'm Marshita from OpenLearning. I'm so happy that you can join us this afternoon and humbled as well that you, our colleagues, partners, as well as participants from many countries around the world who have taken your time to be with us today as we embark on our OpenCreds journey. Thank you for being here. This morning during the industry showcase session, we heard from one of our distinguished speakers, Prof. Abdul Karim, of a SWOT analysis that he and his team at USM developed prior to embarking on their micro-credential initiatives. From his sharing, we know that there's definitely a huge opportunity for education providers to start thinking about this new and innovative way of delivering courses to diversify your revenue streams or reach new markets, among other benefits. However, for organizations looking to start or plan your micro-credential initiative, serious deliberations amongst all of the stakeholders in the organization is required. So to fully commit a holistic and practical in-house strategy is needed. New in-house policies might have to be added or existing ones adapted for sustainability of your initiative. So I'm very excited to be here today, this afternoon, to facilitate this session that will be led by Dr. Ho Sin Chai, a distance learning specialist and also a former Vice Chancellor and CEO at Wawasan Open University. Drawing from his own experience, Dr. Ho will be sharing with us critical success factors when developing an integrated, practical, and scalable in-house strategy with clearly defined action plans and implementation timelines for your organization's micro-credential programs. Before I pass the screen to Dr. Ho, I just like to go through some housekeeping details. So Dr. Ho will be taking questions at the end of this presentation, but do not worry, you may drop your questions in the Q&A function. If you can just scroll to the bottom of the screen and look for the Q&A button and just type your questions there at any time throughout the session, okay? So without further ado, let's start the session. I pass the screen to Dr. Ho. Take it away, Dr. Ho.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mashida. Let me get my PowerPoint open and then we shall share the screen afterwards.
Okay.
Okay. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I did not rewind my presentation.
No
Let me
worries.
just do it very quickly now. I was just testing the video just now. All right. I think I'm set.
Okay.
Yeah. Can I take over now?
Yes. Go ahead.
First and foremost, I'd like to welcome everyone to this session, of course. And I'd like to begin by first thanking OpenLearning for this very, very good opportunity. And also, it is also an opportunity for me to rekindle my interest in distance learning, especially with regard to open distance course delivery. Just to add on to what Mashita has said, I have all along been what I call myself a lifelong educator. I think these days you hear more about lifelong learners, but I'm from the other side of the fence. I'm a lifelong educator. I have spent 28 years in USM, getting involved in the very first off-campus program that it started in this country, which is way back in the early 1970s. Then I spent about 6 years with the Ministry of Science, heading a division, spearheading marine science research. And my last 10 years was spent at the Wawasan Open University, as Mashita said, and with the last 6 years serving as its Vice Chancellor. Now, as I mentioned...
Sorry, Dr. Ho, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I think we need to change your screen to slideshow mode because we can currently see the next slide and the notes.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. Yeah.
Okay. Tell me when you're ready.
I think you will need to do that, Doctor. Just need to change your screen to the slideshow mode.
This is what I did just now. Hang on a minute.
Okay.
Sorry for this. I'll try again.
No worries. Take your time. I think it's an extended view, so change your screen sharing to the other view.
I'm trying to find it.
Okay, all right. So I think you need to stop sharing first.
Okay, I think that's what I should do.
Okay, all right.
Am I okay now?
Yes, all good. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Oops.
Sorry about that.
We just lost your shared screen. So just share again.
Oh.
No worries. Take your time.
How is it?
Okay, we're back to the presenter mode. Maybe can you try to click on display settings at the top?
Yeah, I chose I'm using two monitors, so I'm using my second one as the...
All right. Then probably it's the first one that we need to...
For you, it's the first one. Okay, let's try anyway.
Yeah, okay, let's try. Don't worry.
No, now it's my first screen.
Okay. Then it's the second screen.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Okay. Sorry, and thank you for your patience, everyone. We're just getting this. Yay. Okay. We're back.
Back? Is it okay?
Yes.
Strange, because I did the very same thing.
No worries. Okay. Let's continue.
May I proceed? Yeah. Where was I? Yeah. Anyway, all in all, I'm coming to you this afternoon with more than 40 years of experience, but predominantly as an educator, as I said. So you find that in my presentation, my emphasis is more on the education side, the pedagogy side. especially with regard to the need to inject quality and standards into our presentation. I will show a slide later to say that I have very good reason for doing it, simply because if we were to strip all the fancy bells and whistles from a micro-credential, it is basically still very much a cost. So when we are developing it, we have to be very mindful of what should be done and do it the correct way. This will be, of course, a walkthrough because of the time given, so I will not have time to elaborate very much. But first of all, let me manage some attendees' expectation. This workshop is not about crafting a strategic business model for your organization. As I said earlier, I'm going to focus more on good practices that one perhaps should be aware of in developing and delivering good course materials to your consumers. Because in this day and age, our consumers are very tech savvy and also very conscious of what they want. They have high expectations. So we want to ensure that the products that we produce eventually will meet their expectations. Along the way, I try to bring out some of the possible challenges and pitfalls. And I understand from the organizers that the audience comprises representatives from HCPs, the industry, employers, and also learners. So, and because of that, I have crafted my presentation to hopefully to try to cater to meet all the needs. So forgive me if those of you who are seasoned practitioners sitting there in this session, sorry, I'm seeing a message popping up in my thing.
No worries, Dr.
Yeah.
Ho, it's just the poll.
So shall I ignore it?
Yeah, yes,
Okay,
you can
fine.
ignore. Yeah.
Right, so let's proceed further. My apologies again. Now the objectives, of course, as I said, to give an early insight and share experience and concerns and also pose questions, not only from me to you, but also from you to me at the end of the session during the Q&A. And also, I think to address, at least preliminary, one of the main problems or challenges that confront us at some stage, or even some at this confronting us today also, is the question of the issue of articulation. I'll touch on that in a short while. Then, of course, at the end of the day, I'll sum up to try to list some of the critical success factors and so on. Some of them are already shown on this slide already. So we shall do that when the time comes. Now, when we talk about steps towards strategy formulation, again, I always like to begin any project by looking at the first of all, the big picture. And this is what I have put down in bullet points. We shall try to assess the current higher education landscape and trending. Next, we establish a common understanding of what micro-credentials are. I put this point here simply because I think it is generally understood. If you were to talk to people from various universities and so on, one of the primary concerns of theirs is different people understand micro-credentials differently. So if we were to sit together, excuse me, to develop a course, a micro-credential course, then we should at least establish a common understanding so that we are all of the same focus and mind. So next course, I will try to highlight the stakeholders who will be tasked to steer the micro-credential development and delivery. And of course, without fail, some discussion on QA standards has got to be brought into the picture. And as for any good practice, at the end of the day, we have to come up with a system for monitoring, review, and revision for continuous quality improvement, or CQI. Something which I think our accreditation agency, MQA, is already preparing, and it is soon, I hope, the relevant document will come out of their pipeline. Now, why the push for micro-credentials today? I think we heard in the earlier session this morning some of the reasons already. Obviously, there's a clarion call for micro-credentials today. From my perspective, I look at the following. One is the move from the recognition of degrees or diplomas to recognize more granular new skill competence by the employers. Employers are clamoring for skills, fit to purpose, quick skill training, and this is where micro-credentials will come in very, very useful. There is also at the same time a growing call for the workforce for flexible, personalized learning courses. Of course, to make it worth their time and efforts, these courses have to be validated and award certificates. I have met a lot of industry employers who complain that their employees somehow are not keen on their in-house training and so on. One of the main reasons is because they do not get any certificates which are recognized, or in other words, which are credit bearings at the end of the session. So it's a matter of just going in as a matter of course and then going out at the end of the course. So if we do not come up with validated credit bearing courses, then I think the buying in by prospective students will be less. Then, of course, the market demand for modular, stackable, portable, short duration courses. And these are something that not only the learners, but the trainees, but also the employers are looking for, as I mentioned earlier. Now, I also threw in the last bullet point here, which is demand for clear rules and pathways for seamless articulation of earned microcredits. Now, we know of microcredits that may not even carry any credits. So here the focus more on micro credentials that carry credits so that they can contribute to the overall academic pathways for the learners. Fortunately, in Malaysia today, I think the environment and enabling environment is already there. I don't think I need to elaborate too much, but I put this slide here to summarize, give at least the newcomers some insight into what is already in the landscape. We have, of course, the Malaysia Education Blueprint, the qualification framework, the guidelines for credit transfer. You see, as the thinking proceeded, all this fell into place, one thing after another, and all with the sole purpose of paving the way for lifelong learning. So the ministry, especially MPA, put in all this into the system to enable lifelong learning to be pursued, not necessarily based on the traditional way, but also from the non-traditional ways. So the landscape therefore allows for that. The enabling environment is already there. And the latest, of course, is the input from OpenLearning's OpenCreds frameworks, which I think has been elaborated quite a bit this morning also. So in a nutshell, this enabling environment sets the stage for us to promote lifelong learning, in particular, giving recognition to partial qualifications. I remember in the early years, the idea of partial qualifications was never entertained. It's all very much traditional. You come in for a qualification, you complete that, and you executions. So this is indeed a game changer. The other one is, of course, the acceptance of experiential or informal learning into the education system. So that is very, very useful. The latest scenario, as I said, is the alignment efforts put in by OpenLearning's OpenCreds and the MQA's GGP. These are the guidelines for good practices and micro-credentials, and also the OpenLearning's framework for micro-credentials. They jive very well, and I think pretty soon they will be further formalized, and the document will be issued to a formalized document will be issued by relevant agency. Now, as I said, understanding of what micro-credential is. I think the best way to start is look at MQA's definition of micro-credentials, which is, as I show it on this slide, digital certification of access knowledge, skills, and competencies in a specific area or field, which can be a component of academic programs. This is where the partial qualification idea creeps in, or a standalone course for supporting professional, academic, and personal development of learners. It's a very broad definition, but I suppose it captures the spirit of the whole purpose. So I think this bodes well for developers who are planning to go on this journey. Then just to elaborate further or to summarize, I think this has been said over and over again, characteristics of micro-credential courses. They are supposed to be modular, stackable, portable, of quality, and most important, I think, as far as the industry is concerned, employers are concerned, they should be practical and fit for purpose. This is where I said the micro-credential will come in very, very useful. And of course, last but not least, flexibility, learning at any time, any place, and it preferably online, of course, so that the students or the learners are not tied to one particular campus or place. Now, I brought up this analogy. Well, on the left, of course, I'm showing Jenga, the block game, which actually is, I don't know, for those of you who are familiar with the game, you have to keep stacking, pulling one block from the bottom and put it up, ensuring that the stack, the whole column of blocks doesn't collapse. The one that collapses the thing gives the winning point to the others. So this is how the game is played, but let's stay away from playing that game. But basically, I thought it is a very good example to fit in some of our thinking as regard to micro-credentials. They are what credit bearing, we say, yeah. I'm referring specifically to credit bearing because the rest are of less critical importance in this case. And this can be in the form of a badge obtained from attending a MOOC course or some other certificates obtained from different institutions. And imagine an applicant or a student who have acquired all these credits and badges coming to a university seeking articulation into a mainstream program. Now, this is something that has to be thought through very, very, very thoroughly. And I'm sure universities, I have spoken to some of the academics, they are a bit concerned. In fact, all of them are struggling, even including universities overseas, how to accommodate this kind of challenges, this kind of requests, without losing sight of course, credibility, quality, and so on of the degree. So I've thrown this slide in to set people's thinking, and perhaps in the course of this session, you'll be able to share some thoughts with us at the end of this session. Of course, when you talk about micro-credential, and we keep hearing about bite-sized chunks of knowledge, now it brings to mind the question, how small is a bite size? Especially if you're thinking of producing a course. So one of the ways I look at it is, okay, of course, we have MQA's definition of it to guide us based on the MQF, for example, credit system. In Malaysia, 1 credit point is equivalent to 40 notional hours of learning. And you check, if you were to check with European Credit Transfer System, ECTX, this roughly they give on the average. Yeah, these are not fixed. Certain universities give more, others make a bit less. But certainly from my survey, the minimum is around 25. 1 credit point is about 25 to 30 hours. And if you look further, comparing with what's happening in the UK and the US, these are some of the ranges of credits point or credit value they provide in terms of learning hours and so on. So again, if you are to design a course, you may have to bear that in mind, do some groundwork and see what's the best option for you. Of course, as I said, MQA's guidelines shall serve as the primary factor for our consideration. And as far as stakeholders goes, I think in the micro-credential ecosystem, We have MQA providing the overarching QA guidance and oversight, as we all know, especially the higher education providers. Then the other players are the higher, of course, besides the higher education sector, which in this box would include also the colleges and polytechnics and so on. Yeah. So I have not enlarged the box unnecessarily. The other, of course, is the industry sector, the other providers. Yeah, the SMEs, SMIs, and so on, plus, of course, the private employers. Then on the other side, of course, the learners, the consumers, which actually can include industry parties as well. So, but I've just left it to just a learner to make this diagram simple. So here we are, the three major sectors or players that are involved in the ecosystem. Now, then I asked myself, among the three, what should they be aiming for in this whole exercise, micro-credential exercise? So I came to this slide. Universities should provide clarity on micro-credentials and the offer that they offer, and to ensure good take-up by learners and employers. The word there is good take-up. I know there's a lot of busy activities going on in universities now, both here, local and as well as overseas, coming up with micro-credentials. But the question here is, to what extent will your products be in demand? Perhaps initially they will be in demand, but eventually, in time to come, will they sustain the market demand with regard to their own products? Now, as far as the learners are concerned, I think what they need is actually a need for quick access to information. This is in the context of trying to look for micro-credentials and so on. So I would imagine that on the top of their mind will be contents, study plus articulation pathways, and certificates. And more importantly, for those of us who have been delivering open learning or distance education, the availability of good learning management support services, and also a secure digital database to store and retrieve digital certificates whenever necessary. Now, this third bullet here is very much looking into the near future. Although I know for a fact there are a lot of initiatives, especially in Europe, who are going in this direction now, coming out with a secure digital database, making use of blockchain technology and so on and so forth. But this is not the focus of today's discussion. Now, as far as employers go, they have to understand what micro-credentials are and the qualifications they bring. Otherwise, they will not they will not support or endorse their employees' willingness to pursue micro-credentials in their own time. So I think this is something that we need to convince the employers of the values. And most importantly, when we explain to them, we have to explain in terms of the values that their organizations and employees will gain. This is more in the context of gaining competitive edge over their competitors. So this will add to their arsenal as well. Now, then of course, how are they might ask, because a lot of the newcomers, they will ask, how are they different from conventional higher education programs and qualifications? Something that we have to come up with answers when we meet them and so on. Of course, now the core question, how to develop a micro-credential course that will result in successful student learning. Again, I think to my mind, three factors come into play. First and foremost, of course, the people. Two, the process. And three, the tools. Now, the people, and I stress here, you have to put subject matter experts in your team. Not only just your colleagues in your department, in your school, in your faculty. You have to look around for people with the necessary expertise to contribute to your course development project. We should also bear in mind the TPAC framework. I shall show a slide on that later on. Basically, how technology should be exploited, how different combination of technology with knowledge could be utilized in the most effective way. Then of course, process. Again, the HO framework that many educationists or educators would apply in course design and so on, which is the ADDIE system. Again, I will show something later on. Then, of course, the tools. The tools. Of course, I will just summarize that. As I said, this is going to be a very brief awareness creation session. Use e-learning authoring tools that will meet your needs, not the e-learning, not necessarily the best authoring tool, which you don't need. Yeah, they have a lot of features which you may not need at all. But at your stage of development, for the purpose of your development, what is the best tool to use? So these are some of the main points that I'd like to talk about in the subsequent slides. Now, I mentioned TPAC just now. Basically, the diagram shows very clearly the input of technology into teaching methods, into delivering new content, and into pedagogy, into the proper pedagogy. So we should be looking for people with such skills and knowledge, identify them, and hopefully invite them into your team. And of course, don't forget, throughout the course of the development, you need to also think along that way. Yeah. So this and this is where you bring in the right people, they will help you think which is the best way to do what and so on. So that at the end of the day, the students or the learners will get a course that is pedagogically sound and also technically sound. Next, making use of technology also to help in your delivery or even in crafting your course contents. We talk about engagement. We talk about the need for the soft skills, the thinking tools. Already on the internet, there are a lot of good platforms whereby this kind of objectives can be achieved. And of course, nobody discuss or design the course without due consideration of Bloom taxonomy. This is, I apologize if I sound a bit too traditional, but I think when you're talking about developing a course, one has to be very mindful of this. And we should try as far as possible to inject some of these values into the course development thinking, the mindset and process. Especially so with regard to assessment and exercises, assignments and so on. So something that the course developer has to think about. Then, of course, ADDIE, which is basically an instructional design framework, which begins with analysis, design, development, implementation, evaluation, and the cycle goes around, just like a good management system. So this is what ADDIE is all about. So there are tons of literature and videos on this. So go in and have a look for those who are not too well versed with what ADDIE is. And then, of course, I like to sensitize you on the quite commonly used model of guidance concerning learning and development, the 70-20-10 model, which translates into 70, if you like to think in terms of percentage, 70% for experiential learning, social learning 20%, and formal teaching, formal learning 10%. Now, this is particularly useful or pertinent, I should say, especially when we are talking about skills courses, skills training. So, and we already heard this morning that employers want them at the end of the day to have the necessary competence, the skills to do the job that they want. So a course should not be solely theory-based, that there should be a lot of hands-on experiences, hands-on learning. And we also heard this morning's session, the role of internship, the role of housemanship, and so on. There's a lot And I concur with that. In fact, this is happening already in many places. Singapore has a few success stories. So, and with centers interacting with universities and other agencies to come up with trainings or internship that will lead to a common goal. Now, of course, how do I begin? You might ask. Well, we have to follow the ADDIE process roughly. Again, I just outlined here. Do the necessary groundwork, training goals, objectives. Most importantly, the expected learning outcomes. Identify your target students. This is important because you must know to whom is your course targeted for. Yeah, this is not like someone walking into a lecture hall just talking about the course content without realizing who the students are and to what level of understanding they have and so on. And the other thing is to decide on the learning management system platform. This is important because it has to do a lot to do with student learning support, which I'll mention again later on. And I said already to pick an e-learning authoring tool, it is appropriate that you decide on one at this stage, at the beginning, because there are also many other factors involved, including cost and capacity. But most importantly, including your goals and objectives. Now, step 2 is absolutely important, especially in the context of micro-credential for the industry. This is something that not many people have done. Perhaps at this stage I ask, when was the first time you spoke to a SME or SMI director? Or likewise, when was the last time you spoke to an SME or SMI or a captain of industry? So I think this is something that we got to be very mindful. Why do I say it? Because they are the ones with their fingers on the pulse on the ground. If you speak to them, they'll be able to tell you what kind of expertise are expected, what kind of future skills they are anticipating to have in their employees. And this also, there's so many things actually it pays. I remember in Wawasan, the first thing we did was to gather all the captains of industry into a meeting and ask them for their advice and so on and so forth. And that was a very, very rewarding session. And of course, we have the other stakeholders that we have to speak to as well. Then the rest are just, I think they'll flow if you follow the ADDIE time framework. Create a course outline, syllabus, clear blueprint, and put the contents together, decide on multimedia support and tools, specify the course assessment methods, publishing the course, deliver the course, and of course, at the end, without fail, the evaluation bit, evaluate the outcomes, the achievement, the accomplishments of your students. Is it necessary to revise the course? At Wawasan, we had to do revision oftentimes, because at the end of each course presentation, we do a post-mortem, so to speak, or analysis, and then address the weaknesses, the outcome, tying them with student performance, why the results are so poor, how was the material written, and so on and so forth. Despite the fact that we have put in a lot of rigor in the development of a course. So this is a practice I think we all need to infuse into our ecosystem. As I said earlier, if we were to strip off all the fancy bells and whistles, a micro-credential is just like any other course. So a well-developed course has to provide engaging contents and engaging learner support service, especially so for a course that is going to be developed online to be delivered online. And we need to give the maximum support to the learners who are generally studying alone oftentimes. So this is a very, very crucial reminder. And this should also be at the back of our mind when we are developing the course content. Yeah, when we are designing the delivery format. So this is, to me, I think the essence of a course development exercise. And to show to you what I mean, by injecting rigor into developing a pedagogically sound course modules of consistent structure. The word consistent structure is important. In other words, what this means is we must have a commonly accepted blueprint, not only in terms of the materials or the font size and number of pages, number of units, and so on, but in terms of the allocation of timelines for submission of assignments, exams, of course, understood. You know, it usually comes at the end of the semester, but assignments and so on, tutor sessions and so on, so that anyone can who is following this online will prepare for it. Now, what about the course development itself? As I have shown here, if you were to begin from left to right, start to end, we'll need, of course, a course syllabus, which will be translated into the course blueprint. Now, very often this is missing in most, in many people's development value chain. This is lacking. So that if you were to just give the writer the course syllabus and say, go and write whatever you think fit for the course, I think that's a sure sign for failure, or at least you end up with a poor quality talks. Because in your team, you have others as well. And who should be in our team? Okay, you might ask. I put that at the top in yellow box, the course team. There should be the course writers, of course, the professors from University A, University B, or whatever. And yes, I said from different universities, not only from your faculty. We look for the subject matter experts, remember? Course coordinator, of course, you need somebody to manage it. Instructional designer is a different person. Graphic designer to inject the perspectives of the graphic design. And of course, because this is going to be delivered online, the web programmers as well, to share their knowledge of what can be done and what cannot be done. So they got to sit together in this team to come up with the best materials at the end of the day. And of course, the materials will go through cycles of drafts. And we also have included external course assessor, who is an external, as in the context of external examiner. This is a person, a professor generally, from outside your university, so that he or she comes in with a clear mind to give a critique on your content and so on, and so that you can do a lot of midstream changes and therefore rewrite or revision to upgrade the quality of the end product. Of course, the external course assessor will also be guided by the course print. Remember, the course print is the Bible in this whole value chain. It's the unless you produce a course print that's clear, precise, and definitive, chances are you may not come up with the best course material. Then, of course, at the end, of course, you need somebody to publish it. I put the word publication unit. This need not be a unit as such. It could be, you could outsource it, even in some cases, I know, for printing and so on. But in the case of online, of course, it's even easier. It's uploading and so on and so forth into your learning management system. So this is just a very quick flow through of the course, the rigor that we need to put into the course. Now, I mentioned also the e-learning authoring tools. There are a lot of them in the market today, whether some of them are proprietary. I'm sure many of you are using some of this already. I put on the screen. There are others are open source. Some open source are even free. I mean, no timelines and so on. You can carry on and using. Even OpenLearning, I must add here, also offers a platform for authoring tool service. So as Mr. Adam Brimo mentioned this morning, for those of you who like to consider using that platform, I suppose you're most welcome. He'll be more than happy to have you on board. But basically, these are the kinds of authoring tools. You need authoring tools. to help you, because a lot of the good authoring tools, they have the big picture in mind. They know that you, in your course material, you will have videos, you have podcasts, perhaps you would have, of course, written materials, you have which you want to put together and put online. So they are already out there available with specific templates for you to just adopt and apply. So as I said, you find them desktop based. For those of you who are more at home with desktop application, they are available. Others, of course, cloud based, and so on and so forth. So this is for you to consider. Now, I have a question for members in the audience. What can you do as a team member assigned to develop and deliver micro-credentials? I've listed a few points here. You may have your other views. Do share them with us later on. So what are they? Clear understanding of what defines a micro-credential course. Again, I stress this over and over again. It is not something you dismantle or unbundle from your already existing course, package them into smaller sizes and deliver it. It's not that. It has to be given a rethinking, packaging in the way that a micro-credential, especially those dealing with skill sets, have to be. I know in universities, skill sets are not stressed or have not been stressed in sufficient quantities. It's mostly, especially the traditional universities, based on theory and so on. The only skills they get is out of practical sessions and so on. Now, the best practices in developing and engaging micro-credential contents has got to be considered, and not because they have to be credit bearing. So therefore, they should meet QA stipulations of your accreditation bodies or accreditation agencies. Now, on many occasions, this could be MQA, but in the private sector, you may have your accreditation bodies like ACCA and so on and so forth. I think you know who they are in your own profession. Then, of course, identify suitable authoring tools and learning management systems. And at that point, you also have to visualize the pathways for the earned microcredits to be articulated, how they are to be articulated into your mainstream degree programs. Because it is obvious, students or prospective students will be asking you that. As I said, they are not going to do courses that give them no awards or no value at the end of the day. So they're aiming and paying for courses that are credit paying. And at the same time, it would also help them to seek wider recognition for your course by collaborating with professional bodies in the industry. This is helpful because, in a sense, you are paving the way to ensure better employability of your graduates later on, after they have completed or after they have graduated from your programs. And this will help you because the professional bodies will also value add to your course materials. Because when you talk to them, they're going to ask you, what are you offering in your course? And they may be able to tell you, no, this is dated. You should be adding this now. Why isn't any section on blockchain in your banking industry, for example? This is something that I think we can gain a lot from when in dialogues like this. Of course, the need to convince your boss, the employers, how micro-credential course can be incorporated into your organization's HRD program, as I said earlier, to gain competitive edge in terms of upskilling, reskilling if necessary, in case of the universities and colleges, to ensure graduate employability. Of course, if possible, a need for a micro-credential policy to drive the downstream course development and implementation processes. This is very, very helpful. I remember at Wawasan, we were one of the first that came up with the Open Educational Resources Policy to drive downstream course development processes and so on and so forth. 1 year later, UNESCO came out with the OER policy. So we patted our back for that and said, wow, that's far thinking. And this, we found it to be very helpful. Why? Because it has to do with the next bullet as well. With that policy in mind, a formal policy in your organization, you can go and ask for money for your downstream activities. So this is something I thought you should find an occasion to talk with your boss and try to convince him some of the positive aspects of micro-credentials. So I think I'm about to end already. What are the critical success factors? Topmost is institutional commitment. If they are with you, then I think your path ahead is smoother. As I said, policy, money, the rest is your hard work. Senior management support, your immediate boss, the COO, the MD, and so on. Enabling in-house policy, yeah, that's been said. Mainstreaming of faculty capacity building, I think this is crucial. In many institutions in the initial years, especially those just diving into online delivery and so on, this forms a major hurdle. We have to acquaint the academics with the right skills and techniques to handle multimedia tools, to handle learning management systems even, so that they can perform to the best of their abilities. Then production of quality assured and pedagogically sound contents, I've said that already. Provision of learning management support and services for online learning. And of course, seeking strategic partners for smart collaboration. So I will stop here, and perhaps Mashita can invite questions from the attendees. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ho. Yes, we do have questions from the attendees. Would you like me to read out the questions?
Yes, please do. I will be happy to reply. Yes.
Okay, all right. I'll go with the first question, which is from Alexander Chu. How about incorporation of the psychomotor and affective domains?
This is already a point taken into consideration from the pedagogic aspect. Yeah, to a teacher, for example, or an educator, this is nothing new. This has been in practice already. So without doubt, I think whoever is designing the course, as I said, the right subject matter expert has to be in. So with the right person in, this concern is already addressed, I hope.
All right, thank you, Dato'. We can still take one or two more questions as we are going to be, we will have to start with the next session soon. So I'll just read out the second question here, which is from Rizwan Rapin. Has there been any examples of co-developing a microcredit program with industry partners?
I think this is something that our local university will be able to answer. I have been out in the cold, so to speak, for 2 or 3 years now, after spending 40 odd years with the education sector. But whether there are already products out there, but I think we heard from Professor Karim this morning that most of their products are still very much in-house. It's still, shall I say, work in progress. Yeah, I hope I'm not wrong. Work in progress, they have to get it tested first. Run through, let's say you have a new course. You've got to run through several cycles, going through several population or semesters of student population and see how they react. Because once you put it completely online, now it's open online, you're opening your course to the whole world, so to speak. And this is indeed what the end goal should be. Eventually, if a course is in great demand because of its quality, then it should be worked on more thoroughly to put them eventually or ultimately online. At the end of the day, we are looking at the shelf life of a course. Yeah, this is something we are concerned as well, the shelf life. But unfortunately, it's like a paradox. when you talk about micro-credential, they are usually short courses, and they usually fit for purpose. So a course an excellent course that you produce may not be able to last too long, because right after, let's say, 5 offerings or so, technology has changed. For example, in the IT course, you may have to go and come out with a new course, new skill, and so on and so forth. Yeah, or even in education technology, there's so many new applications coming on stream now.
Yeah, even new concepts in instructional design and learning design as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you, Dato. I think I'll just read out one more question. We have 2 similar questions that's related to assessments. So I'm going to just read out one more so that we can sort of answer both. So this is a question from Muhammad Fairoz. Are there any significant differences in terms of achievement of learning outcomes between e-learning courses compared to conventional?
In theory, there shouldn't be. In theory, assuming we are talking about the same course, in theory. Yeah, but in practice, it's hard to say. Depends on who's handling the 2 courses. Generally, it's different person, or sometimes it can be the same. But the course material, generally, I think, from my experience, the course material developed online, assuming it's gone through the rigorous process I described just now, is better defined in terms of learning outcomes. They have no choice. Yeah, they have no choice. They have to spell it out upfront so that learners know at the end of the day what they're supposed to achieve, so that examiners know what they're supposed to examine, and so on and so forth. Yeah, but in the case of conventional course, well, some aspects may be overlooked, and so on and so forth. But of course, I like to feel that they all would achieve ultimately the same goal. But I think here is a degree of achievement. To what extent? Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you in terms of making sure that the learning outcomes are aligned with the content and with the assessment, so that all the stakeholders, the assessors and the learners, they all know what are they supposed to achieve by the end of the course, right? Okay, I think that's all the time that we have for today, unfortunately. Thank you so much, Dr. Ho. We still have some questions unanswered, but I think from the sheer volume of questions that we've seen today, our workshop topic today is definitely a popular one. Conducting internal needs analysis and planning is one of the key first steps when we are formulating our micro-credential initiative. And successful implementation of a sustainable micro-credential strategy represents an opportunity for organizations to offer short-form courses, credentials, or pathways that meet the needs of industry and learners. So successful micro-credential programs also will have the potential to provide a range of upskilling opportunities as well that could prepare Malaysians for a future of continuous and lifelong learning. So I hope that everyone who have been with us today, this afternoon, are inspired by the sharing from Dr. Ho. And thank you so much for your active participation and all the wonderful questions that we got from you today. Those are really useful for us as well. And I think that's the end of this session today. Is there anything else from you, Dato'? Is there anything that you'd like to share as a last?
No, except to say thank you. Thank you very much again for the opportunity. Well, and I hope everybody has benefited to some extent from this session. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Dato'. I'll pass the screen now to Erica. Thank you. So, Erica, are you going to take over the screen? Okay, all right. So I think this is the end of the session, and we will be starting the next session at 4:30. So stay tuned with us.
Hello, hello. Okay. Assalamualaikum and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Hi, I'm Dr. Dian, and welcome to our second workshop for today, Unbundling Hours, Turning Your University Courses into Micro-credentials. We hope you've enjoyed and gained valuable insights regarding micro-credentials throughout the symposium so far. So to continue with this exciting conversation on micro-credentials, we are very honored to have with us today Associate Professor Dr. Aisyah Abu Bakar, the Director of Center for Instructional Resources and E-Learning at University Malaysia Pahang, UMP, for this 1 hour workshop. Assalamualaikum, Dr. Aisyah.
Waalaikumsalam, Dr. Dian. Thank you so much.
No problem. So this workshop is aimed to provide participants with different approaches to unbundling a university course to micro-credentials. So before we start, just a quick note to all participants. Feel free to post your questions in the Q&A box, and we will try to address as many questions as we can throughout the session. And I think that's all the note that we have. So without further ado, Dr. Aisyah, whenever you're ready to start, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Dian. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And a very good afternoon and also a very good day to all of us who are here to be doing what we call turning your university courses into micro-credential. I think before we begin, we do have a quick poll that I'm going to pass it again to Dian. And I suppose this is the question that we are very much interested to find out. Why are we here? So when I said about why are we here, I personally also have a huge reason why I'm here. And I'm sure that the reason why you are here is also similar to why I'm here. So let's go and participate in this Mentimeter, and you can go and put in the code 53, 37, 91, and 5. Over to you, Dian.
Yes. I would like to invite participants to go through www.menti.com and enter these codes for you to answer these questions, the simple question there, and then I will share. So it's actually a word cloud poll. So we'll look how the patterns of the word cloud will look like. So give me a few seconds to share with you the Okay, so we're having people coming in, answering. So you'll see this is
networking,
yeah.
technology,
So we'll see learn. So this is fun to see the different
experience to get some knowledge.
Yes.
Curious. Coming in. Yeah. Networking. That's great. Networking, very important. Curious, exactly. Coach, knowledge, get new ideas, explore micro-credential, create, get ourselves excited.
Exactly, and we're seeing more and more words coming in, different words to see. Shows how exciting micro-credential is. People to coming in, giving their thoughts on why they
create, to know how to unbundle, to get new ideas, to know how to know how to do chunking or small chunking. Right. Shall we go from here?
Yes, sure.
Okay. Shall I share my screen now, dear?
Yes. Go ahead, Dr. Aisyah.
Right. Okay. Can you see my screen yet?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you so much for participating in the word cloud, and majority of you are here to network. I think network is very important indeed. But when we actually do a little bit of brainstorming on, we thought why people are here. Perhaps we came up with some of us being the chosen one. When we talk about being the chosen one, you have been assigned to actually come up with modules and also to come up with micro-credential from your university course. But all I'm saying is that from all the participants that we have this afternoon, being this the last session of the workshop, we can see that almost 200 of us here, we are not alone. And in fact, this is the great point for us to network and find out how other people are actually dealing with micro-credential, coming up with unbundling their course and coming up with micro-credential. So if you are the chosen one, I think we need to actually look at it as an opportunity rather than as a lonely journey. And this is where I would like to take you to into a new journey. So I do hope that you will find this journey is going to be quite beautiful. So before we begin, I think it's only fair to actually bring us, you and me, to a place where we are very familiar with. So I would like to start by actually taking the journey to walk you through our course. And let us start by actually looking at basically the course information that is a must for everybody in Malaysia to actually comply to. This is actually the requirement from COPA 2, and I'm sure you are familiar with COPA 2. And one of the tables that is famous and almost known by all lecturers is actually table 4 in COPA 2. So what is actually table 4 in COPA 2? It is actually a course information table that requires us to do plan our course, to actually declare our course learning outcome, to actually map our course learning outcome with the PLOs, and also to declare our teaching and learning methods and also the assessment methods. But the one that we're going to start to look at when we want to unbundle, not only on the course learning outcome, but we also actually would like to look at item number 10 from table 4. Because the walkthrough process will begin from item number 10, table 4, COPA 2. However, I would like also to touch a little bit on the course learning outcome, because at the end of the day, we can only unbundle our course into micro-credential if we already have our course well planned and well designed. So when we talk about well planned and well designed, it involves coming up with clear good learning outcome. When we talk about clear good learning outcome, it is something of course measurable. However, it should also be connected to topics or to areas that we would like students to be able to demonstrate at the end of topics. So normally that's how we actually write our learning outcome. And after we write our learning outcome, I think I'm sure we are all then complete our table 4, item number 10, by putting all the course content, match it to the course learning outcome, and then we declare how we're going to deliver each of the topics that has been assigned to a particular learning outcome. Let's have a look at a typical how table 4, item number 8 being translated. I'm sure different institutions have different layout and different format on how you comply to table 4 COPA 2. And this is the one from my institution. You can see that we actually have to list our course learning outcome, and you also need to list all your assessment that you use to actually measure those learning outcomes. But this is not really the point that I would like to begin. The only thing that I would like to highlight in this particular document is actually, I can get my pen here, is actually how we write the course learning outcome over here. And if we write the course learning outcome over here, we may actually want to actually also include topics that those learning outcome actually covers. So those are roughly topics that is covered in each of learning outcome that I have crafted for my subject. So if we have a good set of learning outcome, we are actually in a good position to unbundle our course into micro-credential. At this point, I think it's also worthwhile to pick your brain and find out, how do you think about your course? How fit or how ready is your course to be unbundled? I would like to pass this poll again to Dian, and let's find out whether you feel that you are ready to actually unbundle your course before I actually share um, certain approaches on how to unbundle your course into micro-credential. There are actually 4 options here. Obviously, you have more than 4 options, but we just give you 4 options. We said that if you think that your course is fit to be unbundled because your course is already modularized, maybe some of you feel that your course is already fit to be unbundled because your course is actually skill-based, course is real problem solving, your course is already industry driven. The poll is coming. Yes, some of you, and it's changing. So currently, majority of you feel that your course is fit to be unbundled because if you look at the bar, although it's keep changing and fluctuating at the moment, because your course is already modularized, that's a good news. And your course is already, skill-based, skewed to skill-based. So that's roughly the idea of who I'm currently facing, and I think the journey that we're going to bring you through is quite relevant to what you declared over here. So Dian, if we may now go back to the presentation. Right. Right. So since majority of you have actually declared that your course is already modularized, find out. I got a little bit of problem because my slide is not moving. So it's moving now. If your course is already modularized, I think you will have no problem, and your journey into unbundling it into micro-credential will be much easier. However, we're going to stretch your basically your idea or your knowledge on the reason why you're unbundling it into a different dimension today. But if your course is already modularized, you are more or less fit to straight away look at example on how you go from there and develop your course. And this technique has been discussed and has been well utilized by many lecturers, and you can straight away go into Prof. Karim's webpage, CDAE, and obviously this is one of the method that has been used by many people to come up with micro-credential, where when your course is already modularized, meaning that you already put your topics into groups and into a certain learning outcome, and then you can either take those topics and offer it as micro-credential, or you can actually break up your topic into much smaller module, and you can offer that much smaller module, micro module into micro-credential. So this is actually one method of coming up with micro-credential. The one that I would like to share today. So this is actually again an excerpt from the from USM, or from Prof. Karim's presentation on how to unbundle a course. So you can see here, this is actually Associate Professor Azida's course. where she actually already designed the course such that the course is actually modularized. You can see that there is module 1 and there is module 2, and there's also another module which is module 3. And she actually using this framework that Prof. Karim actually showed us, where each module, you then break it up further into much smaller module. And in fact, each of these has been turned into micro-credential. So this has one micro-credential and another one is micro-credential. So I will not be elaborating this technique, but what I would like you to consider is another technique that I would like to share today. And basically the technique that I would like to walk you through is an approach that I simply call it as inside out. The reason why I said this approach is actually inside out is because let's look at what we have and let's look at how we can take opportunity by looking what's out there. So when we talk about what's out there, I think we need to somehow realize that when we want to break up our course into smaller chunks or bite size, uh, we do not want to create millions of micro-credential by Malaysian higher learning institutions simply because this is the current trend in Malaysia, and we are actually going to come up with many micro-credential courses. However, it is worth to not to repeat the same mistake where at one point we have been asked by our by our Ministry of Higher Education to actually look back at all programs that our higher learning institution offer to find out whether they are still relevant, whether they are still needed out there. So when we actually want to offer micro-credentials, I don't think it is fair to just break up our course into smaller pieces without actually looking whether this is actually needed, what are the problems out there that we are trying to solve, and who basically going to take our micro-credential course and what exactly that we want to achieve at the end of we offering that micro-credential course. Basically, if it's a program that we are offering, normally it is our faculty or it is basically our curriculum committee is the one that need to do the market survey or the needs analysis to find out whether the program is actually needed or not. So when we talk about micro-credential, before you even want to break up into smaller pieces, now the role of having to find out whether it is needed or not, what is out there, how are you going to break up your course into smaller pieces, will very much depends on you. You are the one who need to do the homework. So let's find out how we can do this easily. So when we talk about inside out, let's look at what we have in our course. For example, this is actually item number 10 from Kopatu, and this is actually my subject. So the easiest way to, if for example, your course has not been modularized, and let's say you do not have a good design before, that's okay. Because what we can do now is we can start to do a little bit of what we call thematic analysis on what we have from our course. So from whatever that you have in your course, all that you need to do is, like in my case, when I've been asked to actually come up with micro-credential, I begin to modularize my course. So how do I do that? I simply look at all my topics that I have aligned with learning outcome. And then I do not actually modularize it based on learning outcome 1 as one module, learning outcome 2 as one module, learning outcome 3 as one module. If I do that, you can see that, the topics that fall into learning outcome number one, only learning outcome number one, for example, will not create a meaningful micro-credential. The reason why I say that is because when I actually try to map my topics that I attach to course learning outcome number one, those topic is actually inadequate in order for me to offer it as micro-credential course to allow somebody out there to actually perform or to do a job. So in this case, what I did was simplest way is I actually when I've been asked to turn it into modular, I actually open up my textbook, the typical textbook that I use for this subject, and I start to look at the topics from these textbooks. And I also found that, you see, this is actually topics, if you look at this particular example, my topic number one, topic number two, topic number three, and also topic number four, the one in red box, is actually mapped with chapter one of this particular textbooks that I use. And I found that majority of textbook in my discipline actually put all these topics together. And I start thinking why majority of these textbooks is actually putting these topics all together. It's because at the end of all these topics, basically students will be able to do something. Or in fact, if we are talking about outcome-based education, we have to think about what is it that the student can actually do, what student can actually know at the end of this topic in order for them to perform in their future career in that particular discipline. So this is the SI company basically is the company that I thought that will be benefit from my micro-credential if I break up my course into these modules that I put them in different colored box. So you can see that when I actually try to map chapters to the topics from my item 10, table 4, part 2, you can see that there are actually several topics that fit into the second chapters. And the reason why I break the second chapters from that book like this is because I found from my personal experience in my discipline that these particular topics, only these particular topics are actually highly needed by a certain target group. And for example, if I offer this micro-credential to a contracting firm, then they will benefit this micro-credential a lot in comparison to if I actually combine this topic with other topics that I don't know whether I will have takers or not. And you can also see that there are two topics in blue over here that I actually picked and put them together. And the reason why I actually picked and put these two topics in a blue box is because I personally found that if I combine them together, I can create one micro-credential. And who is my target audience? My target audience is actually those company who actually deal with soil improvement, because in engineering, this is actually different company, this is different company, and soil improvement is also another different company. So in this process, what I would like to highlight here is that I did not actually break up my course into 4 modules, typically a 3 credit hours subject being actually instructed to for us to break up into 4 modules or 3 modules. And also for the 4 credit hour subject, normally we also been instructed to break it up into 4 modules. Not necessarily we need to break it up based on course learning outcome. All I'm saying is that you can actually have a look back at all your topics and find out how you can group your topics together, do a little bit of thematic analysis, okay? Then make sure that we also have an idea that our module may not necessarily only be targeting our current student, our undergraduate student. We must think big such that we must actually also think about who is out there that's going to use our micro-credential course and how are they going to benefit from it. So basically, um, my personal advice is for us to come up with meaningful a meaningful micro-credential rather than just having micro-credential that we throw out there in an open market. So when we identify those modules worth for us to offer as micro-credential, it is good if we can actually identify companies, if we can identify basically the end users of our micro-credential. Other things that I think I would like to highlight here in this technique is that when we actually want to come up, want to break up our course into smaller modules, we also like to find out who else has been offering the same modules. Let's say if I actually want to offer a module, the one in the red box, it is best actually for us to find out who else, because if you just go through the website and if you go to any online learning platform, you will find there has been, you know, many institutions offering the same micro-credential course. Therefore, when you want to actually unbundling your course into smaller module, you also would like to think about how will my module that I would like to actually create now be different than the one that has been actually offered out there. So this is also something that we need to think about. Um, and I think when it comes to unbundling your course, there is no right or wrong way of doing it. This is just at the end of the day a matter of we have to plan it well, because how at the end of the day we need to do a little bit what we call needs analysis, and it is very important for us to know who is our target audience and why we are actually offering that micro-credential. It is not just about having to offer micro-credential, it is about wanting to actually solve real problem out there and address the needs that we have out there. And that is also the reason why if you look at the Open Creds, this is actually the Australian Open Creds, you can see that OpenLearning is actually offering the three categories or the three potential learners that we can offer our micro-credential. It can be for professional learning, it can be for TVET, and also it can be for the higher learning institution. This is for the stackable purposes. But majority of us also, I think, would like to offer micro-credential for lifelong learners, and they have different needs. The reason why when we unbundling our course, we need to think about all these potential learners is because it will affect the choice of topics that we put together. It will affect how we actually develop the micro-credential course. It will actually affect the storyboard. It will actually affect the design. It will actually affect who are we going to work with. Later on, I will actually discuss with you who else you can work with when you actually develop your micro-credential. So this is what we call a planning stage, and a planning stage is actually very crucial. And how you determine how to actually break up your course into smaller pieces is very crucial indeed. This is the one that I actually basically add from what has been launched this morning, because OpenLearning has launched Malaysian micro-credential framework called Malaysian Open Creds, and you can see how it actually differ from the Australian Open Creds. That is because Malaysia is very unique indeed. So when you want to unbundle your course, if you have end in your mind, who are you going to offer your micro-credential to? You can see that in Malaysia, we have a lot more learners, because when we talk about, we want to actually offer our micro-credential to the TVET learners or to TVET practitioners, then we have plenty of options under the TVET. And also I put here in Malaysia as well, because Malaysia is unique, and we have multiracial, multi-ethnic. We also have many people who are interested to actually sit for a micro-credential course, simply wanting to reflect on something and simply wanting to become a reflective practitioner. So there are a lot of factors affecting on how we actually unbundle our course into bite-sized modules. It's not just about chop it, the whole 14 weeks into 4. It is not about just, chop it based on course learning outcome. But what we need to have in mind in the first place is, what is the problem that we try to solve out there? And basically, what is the trend out there? So I would like to go back a little bit. This is also the one that I actually picked from this morning session. You can see iTrain Asia is also another online learning platform provider. And you can see that they also basically highlight that, when you want to actually offer your micro-credential, please think about whether your micro-credential is helping people to go into real world project, or whether it is for university courses, or whether it is for career support and also pathway. There has been a lot of discussion about career pathway when it comes to micro-credential. So when we want to unbundle, as I mentioned earlier, we need to have a clear purpose why we unbundle our course. If we have a clear purpose, what's the problem out there that we are trying to address, then we will have a clear reason why we put topics together, right? And then we also, I think when we want to unbundle, we also need to look at the trend out there. When we talk about trend out there, this is where I would like to actually share a technique on how we can actually do this effectively. But before I actually share that technique, I just like to go through with you what I mean by trend. If you follow this, basically from this morning session, and also the recent news that everybody got at 1 o'clock, about half 1 today, that we do have what we call Penjana KPT cap. And Penjana KPT cap is actually a recent initiative where money being put in, and it has been announced that the government will want to create more jobs for university leavers, and basically, if we actually listen carefully to the trend, to the current trend. The current trend is talking about competency based, is talking about career pathways. So when we look at our course, we should not only think that if I actually unbundle my course, this micro-credential will be taken by my student. But I think what we need to do now is, when we actually unbundle our course, what we need to start thinking is, how can our course be used for career pathway? How can our course be used for competency based? So that's what lead us to choosing target audience. That will also require us to look at the overlapping initiative. So what I mean by overlapping initiative is like when you already break up your course into smaller pieces, you would like to ask yourself question, if I offer this particular micro-credential, who else has to offer it, and in what way that my micro-credential will be different from others. And then again, you need to actually fit, if you decided to put your micro-credential with OpenLearning or with IT Asia, I think you IT Train Asia or other online learning platform providers, you need to check out what are their categories of learners that they are targeting at. So now what I would like to go through a little bit with you is the needs analysis tools. If we want to offer our program, we normally need to carry out what we call needs analysis. And normally when university wants to offer a program, the basic needs analysis that they do is actually doing a market survey. However, I think we are all aware that MQA has raised a huge flag saying that market survey is not adequate. Therefore, when we want to come up with our micro-credential as well, when we want to break up our course into smaller pieces, we need, before we break up into smaller pieces, we need to do a little bit of what we call needs analysis. And when we want to do needs analysis, obviously we need to use the tools to do that need analysis. And STEAM analysis is one of the tools that commonly used, and you can see that it's being used in Singapore Polytechnic. So what it has is that in these tools, we need to look at STEAM, by the way, stands for social demographic, technology, economy, environment and nature, and also political and legal. So in the needs analysis, before we break up our course into smaller pieces, in order for us to identify whether our micro-credential is needed or not, it's worth to actually have a look at social demographic data. So where can we get this social demographic data? We can get it from DOSM, Department of Statistics Malaysia. We can get this information from ILMIA. We need to find out who is going to take our micro-credential. Who is out there going to take our micro-credential? If, for example, we are targeting school leavers, if we are targeting, for example, practitioner, if we are targeting, for example, pensioner who's going to take our micro-credential, find out whether we do have enough crowd to offer our micro-credential. And also this morning, there has been advice also for us to look at location where we would like to offer micro-credential. If we would like to offer our micro-credential only to Malaysian, then you need to actually look at social demographic for Malaysian. If you would like to actually offer your micro-credential to everybody in this world, therefore you must also know a little bit of who's going to take your micro-credential. So this will be this information is very important indeed, because if you are targeting certain age group or certain ethnic or certain country, then how you choose your topics to be put together and how are you going to actually develop your micro-credential course, your storyboard, your assessment will all be influenced by this decision, by this data. An example is that if you would like to actually put several topics together and you aim to offer it as competency based, as practitioner out there, and if data from ILMIA shows that there are not many practitioners in that area, so you will not be able to actually get people to benefit from your micro-credentials. So there is no point to actually offer your micro-credential for that target group. So that is how you make use of the first part of the STEAM analysis. And then the second part of the STEAM analysis is, let's look at what's technology, what's the way forward when it comes to technology. And I think we are all aware that nowadays people are using, we are in the post-industrial revolution. People are talking about IoT, AR, VR, and so on and so on. Find out whether when we want to choose our topics, find out which topics that can actually address or can actually have a bigger opportunity to get people to connect to the technology that they're going to use, especially in the workplace. Economics, what I would like to talk about economics, although many of us perhaps think that this is not an important point when we want to unbundle our course, this is indeed an important point. The Penjana KPT cap that I mentioned to you earlier on, and also RMK12 play a very important role. If our government, if let's say we would like to offer micro-credential from our course, if we simply break it up into 4 micro-credential, and if our micro-credentials are not in line with the government initiatives, meaning that government do not actually put money on that area or on that particular topic, obviously we're not going to get our micro-credential going if we put it in an open market. So it is very important to look at where the money is. So if, for example, let's say if we are targeting to offer our micro-credential to Malaysia, we need to find out where EPU put money in. One of the area that a lot of money being put in is actually in the area of Tibet. And I think that is also the reason why I think if you look at Malaysian open creds and also other countries of open creds, Tibet now is the main thing. That is because that is what we need. When it comes to environment and nature, this is where if we look at whether or not we should offer this particular micro-credential, what topic should goes in that micro-credential, or what topic should we group together to form a micro-credential in relation to environment and nature. Let's say now we have a lot of problem with the environment in terms of pollution, in terms of structural failure, in terms of green requirement for green technology. So these are basically the areas where we have opportunity, and we can look from our subjects or from our topics, how can we address the needs under environment and nature. Political and legal is also something worthwhile for us to have a look at it. When we talk about political, we also would like to find out what is the interest of the current political or certain countries' political group is actually interested in this current time. So this is what STEP analysis is all about, and how it may actually help us to look at whether or not our micro-credentials is actually needed or not. There are actually many ways on how we can unbundling. So that is actually one approach, looking at what you have in your course and then try to map it what is actually needed out there. So the second approach that I would like to go through, or what I would like to share with you, is actually what I call the outside in. And the reason why I call outside in is do not look at your course just yet, what you have in your course, but the second approach is for us to actually look at what's out there. So this has been discussed a lot this morning when we talk about what's out there, because if we look at what's out there, a lot of time people talk about micro-credential is not just a bite-sized university course that just sit there and not trying to solve anything. Or this morning we have Ms. Jasmine from MOF who said that at the end of the day, we would like people to go into micro-credential and make sure that at the end of the taking that micro-credential, they have a job attached to it. So when we talk about all these, about the career pathway and all that, we are talking about we need to actually, when we want to unbundle our course into micro-credential, into smaller pieces, we really need to look at what is needed out there in the real world of work, in the wild. And when we look at the real world of work, I think it is very, very important for us to start looking at how a real job scope, or what the real job scope is related to our course. The one that I shown earlier on is that when I look at the job scope of a typical site investigation company, a person definitely normally will have to do soil classification, and that is the reason why I I came up with that micro-credential. So when we look at the real job scope and the expectation that a particular job scope need to meet, we will realize that um, that you know, a micro-credential by right should not be just like any other university course. It cannot just be delivering or only consist of or focusing on knowledge, theory and principle. It is not about that. So when we want to unbundle our course, we need to start thinking of how can I actually create a macro credential. Not only it contains topics from my course, but it also have what we call job embedded characteristic. Um, because at the end of the day, I think majority of our panels this morning has talked about, you know, it is not about actually, it is not it is not about I am a 4.0 CGPA holder, but it is about what you know and what skill do you have and what you are able to do. And also, I think it has been highlighted that at the end of the day, how micro-credential address career pathways. What do you, what you can, where can you work at the end of each micro-credential that you have taken. So with that in mind, I think we really need to, when we want to break our course into smaller pieces, into bite size, we really need to do a deep reflection. We really need to pick up a particular job scope, a task a person needs to perform, and find out um, uh, what topics that you need to put together and who are you going to collaborate with. If I may use a teacher, be it teacher in higher education or be it a teacher at school, let's say in the area of assessment, not only if you want to offer a macro-credential on assessment, that you actually offer topics on assessment, meaning that you give theory and principle of assessment. I think we should start thinking of how can we now design our macro-credential course with practice embedded in it. When we talk about practice, we are talking about how can a person actually show their ability to produce things like assessment plan, things like assessment instruction document, exam question, rubric, marking scheme, vetting, supporting students in assessment, feedback marking, awarding, and so on and so on. So if we would like to offer this kind of micro-credential, we can see that not only we need to pick topics that is relevant, we must also have a partner to work with, especially when it comes to the practical part of it. So this is where I would like us to go into an area that some of us are very familiar with. And I'm sure for Malaysian lecturers, you are to a certain extent aware that the ministry has actually launched what we call 2U2I. Basically, 2U2I is a program where both industry and also higher learning institution work together. So at the stage when they design the program, both are actually collaboratively designing the program. It is not only the university that designed the program. So similarly with micro-credential, when we talk about wanting to break up your course into smaller pieces, if you are targeting for upskilling, where the money is now being put by KPT and also by our ministry. Okay, when we talk about competency based, I don't think we can settle down and design our macro-credential course alone. Whether we like it or not, we have to work with others, especially with industry. And the technique to break up, basically the industry will help us to identify what topics need to be put together. So this is also another way of how you can actually break up your course into macro-credential. So if we think of competency-based micro-credential, it will be much clearer and much easier for us to actually put topics together and come up with micro-credential, because our collaborator will be part of the micro-credential of module developer, right? So basically, when it comes to competency-based, the way we break up our course into smaller modules will be based on looking at the job scope in the real world of work itself. And I don't think I can emphasize more on competency based, and why I would like to actually put a little bit more emphasis on competency based for us to consider when we want to come up with micro-credential, is because we do not actually want to, as I mentioned, repeat the same mistake where we offer a lot of micro-credential. It will just sit out there without it doing its good job. So what is needed and what has been advocated by our panel this morning and by many industry partners is that if university wants to come up with micro-credential, if we want to break up our course into smaller pieces, we need to really address the needs out there. And what is needed currently, is highly needed currently, is competency-based micro-credentials rather than currently, although many of us having to actually come up with micro-credential for stackable purposes, but all I'm saying is that when you come up with micro-credential for stackable purposes, you can also actually design it for competency-based purposes. So one micro-credential that can address both needs. Before we end, because we only have very little time now, I would like to pass it back to Dian. My question to everyone is that how can we add values to our micro-credential course?
Yeah, sure. So I'll share the response from those who are answering this particular question. Hold on now. Okay, so this is the final, I think, and it's a very reflection type of question based on what you shared, Dr. Aisha, throughout our session so far on the different approaches for us to actually start turning in existing university courses into micro-credential. So while we wait for some response, and I'm very aware of the time at the end of the day, and we've had a very quite long day here, but just to kind of like reflect on what you have shared, Dr. Aisha, and I myself as a Malaysian educator, you've shared actual practical actions that we can actually do that we may not realize. I'm not claiming that it's easy, but it is an actionable thing that we can, by starting at looking at our own existing university courses, to make it into micro-credentials. So we're seeing some response from our participants, practical being quite dominant in terms of the value that we can add to our micro-credential courses and seeing
How can we add value to our micro-credential course?
By being flexible, by being market-driven, relevant, practical, flexible.
Okay. Actually, when we throw this question, we would like you to think about if you already break up your course into 4 modules, let's say, and it is for the purpose of offering it to your students so that it is stackable, so that they can actually, you know, turn it into a course that eventually for a particular program, for a particular degree program. So if you already do that, how can you add values to your micro-credential course that you already done? Dian, if I can now go to my final slide, please.
Yes, sure.
Okay. What I would like to share how we can add values is that we can see there, okay, this is also in Malaysian OpenCred's guidebook that is available for you to download of OpenLearning. You can see that if you already have you know, a course that you break up into modules, you can now start thinking of targeting 2 audience at one time as well, not necessarily only for higher learning institution for stackable degree program. You can actually embed, for example, here NOS level 1. You can actually find out whether, you know, you can take the opportunity to go into the TVET sector. You can find out whether you can take the opportunity for lifelong learning. So not necessarily when you actually already design your existing micro-credential, it is only for one purpose. All I'm saying is that
I think, hello, Dr. Aisha. Okay, I think she has dropped offline, some issues with her network. So we'll just give a few seconds to get her back in. Okay. So while we wait, let me just see from here. By the way, thank you, participants, for participating in our session. Okay, while we wait, to participants, we are still taking questions, so feel free to post your questions in the Q&A box. We'll try to, before we end, I think we're taking slightly a little longer than schedule, but we'll take a couple of questions, and if Dr. Aisha can respond in this session, but fret not, the rest of the questions, we will address the questions in other mediums after our session. Hold on while I look, or while I get some updates from Dr. Aisha. Okay, while we wait, probably we can do a little bit more polls or some activities here. So let me just share the screen. Okay, so if you would like to go to this code on the Menti, and just like to share to see in terms of the educators, I'm sure a lot of my colleagues are here as participants, in terms of what would be your concern in turning your course into micro-credentials. as much as we're trying to balance the excitement of developing or turning our courses into micro-credentials. Of course, it comes with certain concerns, either constraints or challenges. So it would be also nice to kind of like balance that, the reality of it, to also share that concern while we wait for Dr. Aisha to get back to us. Okay, so recognition, value added, keep seeing audience and or participation. Okay, so all of these are valid and very realistic concerns for anyone who is in the education sector as an educator, providing learning experiences to our learners. Recognition seems to be a very dominant concern, well understood for that. Okay. We'll keep going for a few more seconds on this. Okay, recognition seems to be very, very prominent, dominant. Thank you, those. And I agree with all of these concerns that you have shared with us. We're still trying to see if we can get hold of Dr. Aisha. So just to address some of the requests from the audience, from the participants, some of you have asked for access or copy to the slides that Dr. Aisha has shared in this session. I will share with you now a link. Hold on, yeah. Okay, if you can, hold on. Okay, so for those who are, hold on. Okay, so for those who are wondering where you can access or get a copy of the slides, you can go to this link and you can download and have a copy, a PDF copy of those slides. I will also share the link via chat. Just give me a few seconds. Okay. So if you can access that, or you can also access via the link. If you are joining us via Zoom, you can share, or you can click to that link there, or you can go to that link. You should be able to get access to the slides. Okay, all right. I think due to time, and I think also Dr. Aisha can't seem to get access to this Zoom session now. So I will look at the questions and see if there's anything that I can help to address, or if I can, and if not, then I will collect these questions and we will respond to via other mediums, via follow-up emails later on that we will have with all the participants who registered and joining us for today. So let's look at, I think, the earlier questions. Could we break down, by Carolyn Williams? Thank you, Carolyn, for the question. Could we break down a full qualification into a series of micro-credentials, and if a student completes all of them, they can be awarded the full qualification certificate? The answer for can we break down, so there's two questions here. So could we break down a full qualifications to a series of micro-credentials? The answer is yes, up to discretion of the subject matter expert for that course. And if you follow through Dr. Aisha's session just now, where she shares the different approaches, how we can break down a full course into a series of smaller bite-sized courses, and then in a formal course where we can then stack it back again, where we unbundle, and then we can stack it back again into a complete course qualifications. Then that course, that full qualifications is possible to be made into a series of micro-credentials. And once, and for the stackability purpose of it, once they stack and make it into a complete full set again, then the students will get credentials for the completion of all of those qualifications, micro-credentials to be awarded with their qualifications. So that is for that question. In OpenCreds, we do have in the OpenCreds framework, we do have a guide in terms of for those who are developing micro-credentials as OpenCred to have that features for stackability, for breaking it down according to learning hours. Okay. All right. I'll take probably one more question. Let me see out of the list of questions what I can try to address. Okay, from Dr. Nilesh Kumar, as per your experience, what should be the ideal credit for micro-credential course? Speaking for experience may not be applicable here or relevant here, since we are quite new in creating micro-credential course. But what I can share is on what is suggested in OpenCred's framework to develop micro-credential type OpenCred. We have a set of volumes of learning hours that ranges as the size of OpenCreds as micro-credentials. So we've designed in such a way that we can break down, of course, for not by credits, but actually by its learning hours. So the smallest learning hours is 4 hours, where that is aligned with HRDF regulations or HRDF approach for 4 hours as the minimum duration for a course, okay, up to 160 hours, which is equivalent or aligned to MQA's accredited programs that would be equivalent to a 4-credit course. So we have a range of 7 blocks or 7 volumes of that, which you can refer in our OpenCred framework document. Okay, I think where we have some updates from Dr. Aisha, she apologizes. to everyone. She lost the connection due to blackout at her location right now. So she expressed her apologies to everyone. And I think it was just in time for her to complete the intention of this course of sharing with all the participants the approaches, the different approaches that are available that participants, educators out there can use as tips to try and start planning, developing your your OpenCreds or micro-credential courses. I think we only have time for that. Thank you everyone for the questions. Again, like I mentioned, we will address these questions in our follow-ups. So just to formally then end our session, our workshop session, and also the symposium. We thank you to all participants who have joined us, participated in our polls and posting questions. Hopefully you've gained insights on starting your journey in turning your course into micro-credentials, particularly from this workshop. We're very sorry we couldn't address all the questions here in the sessions. However, we will be following up to various mediums soon, so stay tuned for future updates from OpenLearning. Last but not least, although Dr. Aisha is not here, but we thank Dr. Aisha for facilitating this workshop and sharing her knowledge and experience in turning university course into micro-credentials. I truly believe we are actually one step forward towards making micro-credentials in Malaysia a success. With that note and ending our symposium, on behalf of OpenLearning, we hope that all the participants have enjoyed our symposium today and benefited from all these sessions. We are just getting started and are very excited to share many more programs and updates on OpenCred soon. So stay tuned, and until next time, take care, stay safe, and goodbye. Thank you.